And do I need to progress the slide? Do you have me here, or? I forgot about that. Thank you. Okay. Now I think I'm ready. So I'm glad that we can share this morning, and I'll be showing many of the photos that we took on the trip, and I'll be trying to explain them a little. Anyway, we left from school the afternoon of Wednesday, March 18th, for Upper Columbia Academy near Spokane, where we stayed the night just before catching our first layover flight from Spokane to Seattle just before 11 that morning. After our second layover, which was in Los Angeles, we continued to Guatemala City, arriving near midnight the following day. And we were very tired. Let's see here. Okay. So anyway, we arrived at our hotel the next morning around 3. I don't know. I got to bed around like 3:30 or 4, and I got 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Some got more than that, but I was tired the next morning. And after that, we left for Matacase-Quintla, I think is how you pronounce it. We called it Khalees. Most of the people did that, and even the locals did that. And it was enjoyable. That is the airport in Guatemala. It says, "Welcome to Guatemala," up there in Spanish. At least I think that's right. Do 2 here. Anyway, this is customs area, we're getting registered so we can get in the country. That took us quite a while, and keep in mind that was like between midnight and 3. Anyway, that's the hotel we stayed at. It's made for national people. This is the American section, U.S. It's very nice. They took care of our luggage. This is my room I shared with my classmate Joel. Okay, and this is leaving on the bus to Matacase-Quintla, Khalees. And this is my room in Khalees here. So it was 4 beds in this particular room. I shared it with 3 of my classmates. And the bathroom only worked partially. So the shower head there's no hot water that comes through the pipes, but the shower head, it warms up the water for you, or theoretically. It only worked part of the time. Sometimes we had cold showers, but we also had a lot of awfully hot showers. It was like rarely an in-between. I kind of lucked out on that one. So I was thankful for that because I got pretty good water most of the time. Anyway, this is a view from the hotel we were staying at. This is only one of the hotels, but this is where my particular school group was at. We were with Broken Chains for Humanity, a mission organization based somewhere. I forgot where it was. Okay, California. But anyway, this This is the hotel we were at. We had a nice view of the town. As you might be able to see, there's a lot of bricks. Almost all the buildings were made out of brick and then mortar, whatever you call it. And then often they were painted, but it was in good repair. That's our bus. And you can see the motorcycles there. It's a very common form of transportation. Lots of people used those. They'd have fun on them. This is our part of our group, common meeting place. Okay. So now we're to Sabbath. So we got to our hotel on Thursday morning, I believe, or afternoon, I guess. And so Friday we did some evangelism, sort of going out, advertising it anyway. You'll see the flyers later, but this is Sabbath, and they have a church there. A pastor I'm not sure we saw the pastor that Sabbath, but as Lester commented, they sometimes roam a lot of churches. This pastor had a lot of churches. I don't remember how many, but yeah, 10 or something like that. Okay. This is Sabbath school. And then the church service. So there's doing some singing in Spanish, not that I could understand it. Some of it I could understand, though. So that's a tree with plantains in it. A flower. So that afternoon, we went over to basically a facility that they're building, and they're going to do health evangelism there, medical clinic. So we got to see that. It's not finished yet, but they've got a good start. The building just to the left of it, you can see part of the roof. It's actually mostly completed as far as the building itself, but it does need some things on the inside. There's their garage, so they have a nice area inside there to work, store things. There I am. That's my VBS shirt that I have on, as well as a few of my classmates. As you can see, there's a very nice view there. I really, really enjoyed it. It's very humid, but the temperature was fairly nice. It wasn't like in the 80s some of the time, but not too bad. Unless you're on concrete. The cow, we enjoyed petting the cow. It also enjoyed it a lot. These are the flyers we handed out. So as we'd go around on the streets in Colis, and this is one of my favorite parts, and we'd say like buenos dias, maybe good day, good morning. And then we'd say like medicina gratis, free medicine. So that was interesting. A lot of people were very happy to get it. And it lists the clinics that we'd have open the following week. So there's medical, dental, optical, pharmacy. I'm not sure what that last word means, but I know there was some life counseling. So that might be in there, I don't. This is Salon El Cordero. This is where we would hold the clinics the following week. And we're going to get into that, I think. This is the fluoride station that I was working in with my class. There I am applying some fluoride. My teacher, Mrs. Hartzell. Okay. So what I'm doing there is I would take some of the fluoride, they're in packets, most of them. I'd squish it out in my glove. I'd mix it up with the brush you can see in her mouth there, and then I would start applying it to her teeth. I'd say like abra, or abra la boca, to like open your mouth. So that was a lot, and I said that a lot, and I'd say like bien or muy bien when I was done, to say like good or very good, tell her that she did well, or he, whoever it was. We also did VBS that week. But before I go in and get into that, I want to say I also helped in, as a runner, they called it. So I would take people from registration. When they came in, they had to get this paper filled out, what they needed to be served for, and then they would go to their particular station, but they'd have to follow me or someone else in my group, usually one of the kids. And so we'd take them from the registration to their clinic. They'd sit down, and so that was another fun part. So I forgot some of the words I used there, but I would tell them to come, like, follow me, and I'd say a key, just tell them, like, here, like, tell them where to sit down. And so that was fun. Yeah, and the VBS, that was held in the mornings during the time that the adults also had a health evangelism time. So the VBS also focused on health evangelism. So we'd do some singing, we'd have like health talk, and then we would close up with a craft. As you can see in the background there's paper plates, some other things. We would divide up into groups, so this is part of my group. My classmate Salvador would help with translation quite a bit, which I was very glad for that, because most of the time I couldn't understand the kids. Unless they pulled out a phone and they would do like Google Translate or something like that. We could communicate that way, but I only did that once. Here's some of my classmates. The person second to the right, she was the leader of VBS, and she also played ukulele. So she would lead in singing, some of the health talks, a little bit, and then especially the crafts, so she organized a lot of that. And then it's my classmate Mahali on the right, and so this is it's kind of an example of they would communicate back and forth via the phones, so different people would build relationships with people there. Even if they couldn't communicate with them very easily, they would use their phone. They could translate conversation back and forth. So that was a very, very cool way of doing that. And here's some of the locals on each side of my classmate. A lot of the kids, including myself, that were helping in the groups, and then with some locals there as well. Again. Okay, so that was all working through the week. This is now Thursday, and we're headed to one of our first villages, one of the Mayan villages. We would take, basically going on the road with our clinics, and go up in the mountains. We went up around 8,000 feet on these. Police was down around 5,000. So I found it hard to breathe when I was trying to go up a street or something and climb any hill. This is the end. So it was a church that we went to the first day on Thursday. And there's clinic set up there. Registration is there. That's registration. And there's the children's bus in the yellow. So it was dentistry. And yeah, kids didn't really like that bus a lot, but they came out of it a lot better than they went in. Yeah, it stopped. Did you do that or I? Okay, thank you. This is the back side of the bus. There's some seats there so the kids could wait outside, parents, whoever. This is the fluoride clinic that we took, and this is the Sabbath school room, actually. It's pretty small, but it was a nice area to work. We had a few kids come in around lunchtime, or actually when school got out, I think. I'm not sure. But anyway, we had like a line of kids waiting to get fluoride. But as you can see, we're pretty bored right there. Especially me. One of our patients. A dog. It came around when we were having lunch. I think they were actually starving in a way, but it was very shy around us. We'd coax it up. It had fun eating the food that we were giving it. They had a bit of a garden area around the church there, so that was nice. And then on Friday, we did the same thing. This is a community school in the area. It was another village nearby, again, Mayan. So we had to pack up all that stuff and take it again to another place the next day. This isn't the fluoride station that we were at that village. It's where some of the kids were. They would have activities for them to do while their parents were getting service somewhere else. And then off to the left, I don't have a picture of it, but we would play some soccer with some of the locals. That was a lot of fun. One time we kicked it out of the basketball court. It was actually, and it was all cement. Thankfully, one of the locals was able to throw it back over to us, especially since we had just given them the ball. Okay, this is Sabbath. This is second Sabbath. We're finishing up VBS. So it started on Monday, went through Friday, but on Sabbath we did a little bit more singing. We presented up in front of church. That was just singing songs. And then the kids, they also got a bag of goodies afterwards. Not food, I don't think, but little toys. And then that afternoon, after we had haystacks, and by the way, I ate way too much that day. But yeah, the food was good, and then we went a while later over to nearby lake, went on a walk. The lake was rather murky, but we got to throw some rocks in it. That was always fun. Those are in the background on the lake there. It's like a fish hatchery, I think. Yeah, fish farms. Okay. And we got to see a person actually catch a fish out of one of those, and it was pretty big, like something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we brought it up, and they were going to eat it. Some flowers. Some of the only ones I saw. Chickens. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a dog in the background there. It didn't seem too interested in the chickens, though. Okay. So anyway, after Sabbath, next day on Sunday, we packed up and went back from Calise to the Guatemala City and went to the hotel. You could see a room there. And then what? Oh yeah, hot water. We still could not drink the water here. I'm not sure if I said that, but we had to drink all bottled water. You had to be very careful about brushing your teeth because it was easy to forget about having to use the bottled water and not just going up to the sink and turning it on, putting your toothbrush under. But some people did that. I managed to remember on that case. Some other times I almost drank the water. Anyway, we did some touring from the hotel there. On Monday, we went out to an underground market. Yeah, it was an underground market. So they had lots of trinkets there, very touristy place. And so I got several things from there. They had lots of, next level down, they had lots of fruits and stuff. I saw a banana in there that was like this big around. It was the largest one in the bunch, but it was huge. All of them were much larger than what I see here in the States. Anyway, there's a tower in the background. This is Guatemala City, so some of the cool buildings. That's like a courthouse, I think, or something like it. Okay, just a minute. I gotta figure out what happened here. No, it's yeah, it's my fault, not yours. Okay, so this is back in Calise, actually. I wanted to show this as another common form of transportation. People would drive these around. You could have one of these take you like taxi or something basically around. So they travel. I have no idea how you get one to take you because they drive so fast you can never stop them. But anyway, they're pretty small. The basketball court, also used as a soccer court mostly, but we had a lot of fun on this. There's some basketball. The guy second to the left, he's one of the locals. He actually only has one arm, but he wanted badly to play with us, so we'd let him in. He would try to shoot a little bit, but he never did very well, but he had fun. Anyway, that's pretty much, well, that's it with the pictures. Nope, that's not what I want. Anyway, I wanted to share a little bit of what I learned, or what I believe God was kind of teaching me during this trip. And yes, we served quite a few people. We enjoyed it a lot of the time. Sometimes we were bored, sometimes we were very busy, but it was a lot of fun. But the part that I found the most impactful during this trip was the change of perspective that I experienced. I saw a lot of poor people, and it helped me realize a little bit more clearly how much we take things for granted. But I guess I used to view foreign mission as some great work that changes a person's motives or habits. And now I don't so much. There's no amazing change that comes over a person when they become a missionary. Who a person is at home is who they will be in the mission field. And so this became a humbling realization to me. Someday I would like to, if it's God's will, to be a medical missionary, doctor. And whether that comes about, well, that's God's business. But it helped me realize that my life now is what really counts. It's not about waiting until I get to the mission field. It's about who I am, and not just what other people see, but who I am before God and others. So overall, I really enjoyed the mission trip. It was a chance to see a new way of life, build relationships, and see our God working. So thank you all very much for your prayers and donations.
I touched it, and then I went, I probably should just let the guy in the back turn it on and just leave the microphone alone and pick it up and talk. So as Kyle mentioned, we went with a group called Broken Chains for Humanity. Mr. Hartzell and I actually met them when we lived in Brewster. Get the right town there. There is a large group of people from the Brewster church who, I don't know whether they started it or were in on the beginning, the groundwork of Broken Chains for Humanity, and they have been in Guatemala for 12, 15 years, something like that, specifically in the Mataquesquitla area for, 8 years or so. They started out in Jalapa. The Colis area has been more conducive for what they're doing. They have people who come several times. So we were one of the groups that was coming with Broken Chains this year, and they had another group coming pretty much right after us. So they are building, as you saw in the slideshows, not really a Weimar, but something kind of like that, where people come and stay there, and they address the medical needs in a more pointed way instead of just okay, we see you, we treat you, and off you go. Because that's going to be much more impactful. They will still do the clinics like we've done, but they want to make a bigger impact, bring people in, and really address their needs versus seeing them for maybe an afternoon, and they kind of make it through the areas and get treated for whatever it is that they need to get treated for. We saw some pretty amazing things. A lady came in, and I don't know, I didn't see it. I heard them talking about it, but she had this gash in her leg that had been there for months, and they were able to treat it, and then they were able to do some counseling for her, and hopefully give her some tools to help her heal that. And they saw a lot of those kinds of things. They saw some simple things too, but they saw some pretty impressive wounds and illnesses. And I'll tell you what, in the fluoride station, and all of the kids that helped there will attest to, I have never, ever seen such sad, sorry-looking teeth. And I cannot imagine how those kids were not in massive pain. They must have gotten used to it at some point, but little kids, 10 and under, that have very few of their teeth left, and the ones that are there are open, rotting sores. It was awful. And then we're trying to put fluoride on that. It was just intense. Joel got to work with the dentists. He got to do dental assistant. I think one of the others spent some time with the dentist as well. That poor yellow bus. I know that the kids later were better off for it, but most of them come out crying because they were extracting teeth that just needed to be taken out. But the kids that went with us, it was neat to see them step out of their comfort zone. Salvador knew Spanish. He solidified his Spanish a little more because he speaks English here most of the time. But we were all very English-speaking people walking around Colis, handing out flyers and trying to tell people what this flyer was for. My Spanish is really bad. And I would say whatever, I don't think they were Spanish words, my attempt at Spanish words, and the locals would look at me and they'd just laugh. I'm like, just read it. Yeah, they just look at you just like, I don't know what they're trying to say. Anyway, and we had to just move on because it was really easy for me to go, oh, they're laughing at me, I'm not going to try again. I don't know if the other students felt that. I certainly, as an adult, was very shy about even trying, and I didn't. And then when someone laughed at me, I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't think the kids were quite so bad off. Mahali, bless her heart, she's like, I'll try. I'm like, okay, here, you can do it. But we got better at it. I said a key to the children as I was trying to get them to come over here. But our students, I was just so impressed. They rolled with the punches. They stepped out of their comfort zone. They really grew a lot. It was neat to see when they would play basketball, they would stop and tell the people around that they were playing with or whatever what they were here for, what they were doing, invite them to the evening meetings, pull out their phones and They had lots of conversations through Google Translate. Made some really lasting friends, I think. Some of the people that were in the Colis area actually had long-standing relationships with some of the other missionaries that went with us. So the lady that you saw, if you think back to the school, there was a lady sitting on the ground with a couple of kids. She is known as Grandma Sue. I think that she has gone, 5 or 6 times. And there are kids there that when the Brewster group shows up, they know them. They're friends there. They run up to Grandma Sue and, "Hi, Grandma Sue." And so they have a lasting relationship. So we as a group benefited from that, which was really neat.
Right. How many of you ever gone as a missionary? Very good. So you may have heard this phrase, from everywhere to everywhere, is the phrase that is used as the North American division talks about missionaries and what they want for missionaries. It used to be that missionaries came from North America or Europe and went to places that needed help. Okay? And there's a goal to change that from us going to them to everyone going to somebody. Okay? And so our group got to experience that in that we became the everyone going to someone. And the benefit goes 2 ways in that. So short-term missions oftentimes benefits the people that are going as much as the people they are going to. And it's really it's designed that way. It's not an accident. And so our group, as we headed out, we were a wonderfully diverse group in some ways, and in other ways not diverse at all. We're all very American. Some of us spoke some Spanish, and that was really great, really great. And some of us were willing to put some effort and work into learning Spanish. Mahali was doing fantastic on that. I was not quite as willing to put the effort and work in, so my Spanish was even worse than Carol's. And Salvador still laughs at me about my Spanish. In fact, just yesterday he was making fun of me again about my Spanish. It was bad. So, but Salvador, I did try some, so I'll give you that. I just guess as I stand up here, I want to just reflect for a moment on the fact that in Matthew 28, and I want to grab this. Sorry, I promise I'll undog-ear the page when I put the Bible back. Not that it really helped. Here we go. You guys have heard this verse. In Matthew 28:19, it says, "Go therefore, and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." And then verse 20, "Teaching them to observe all things, whatever I have commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age." And it's that second part. We weren't baptizing, and we weren't involved in that, but we were involved in teaching and educating. And Carol mentioned that this Broken Chains for Humanity group started somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago, and they started in Jalapa, which is about an hour outside of Guatemala City, and they worked there for a number of years, and then they moved up to Quintla, from now on referred to as Colis. I thought we were just being lazy Americans when they introduced it as Colis, but lo and behold, all the locals call it that too, because even if you speak Spanish, it's a really long name. Okay, It's a region. And they moved up there, And when they moved up there, there was no church in the area, zero. As Catholic, and if you were Christian and going to church at all, you went to the Catholic Church. And that's where they started their mission. And today, they have a church of about 80. And that's been in about the last 5 years. That church has grown from 0 to 80. The Broken Chains for Humanity pays for a Bible worker to function within that region, and she's very good and very busy, and has been largely responsible for the growth of that church. And today, and that church is functioning about 80, and when Broken Chains for Humanity shows up to do their mission group and their stuff, that church is actively involved in helping make this happen. So this is not just a kind of a one-time thing going out as a mission trip. This is an ongoing, active mission within the region, and it is making progress. And so I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents and thank my students for going. Thank you guys for helping make it happen. We couldn't go without the support from our churches. And so we just wanted to make sure we said thank you to you for that. So we wanted to, Kyle, why don't you come on back up here, because your answers are much more interesting than my answers. So question and answer time, and if we don't know the answer, I promise we'll just make it up.
So before we do that, I do want to ask that you pray for one of the... Let's see if I can make it through this. I probably won't. Satan was working hard. The lady who led this VBS we made it back to the hotel in Guatemala City, only for her to find out that her son, who had battling depression and had been doing better while they were gone, had slumped back into depression and had lost that battle. And they flew home to do a funeral. Her name was Linda. I don't remember her husband's name. Linda's husband. But pray for the family, because that is a horrible way to end a mission trip. A good mission trip. We enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. So pray for, as you think about it, pray for that family, because God, the timing of it was very obvious that God was working and Satan was pretty mad about that. And he just wanted to get his little jab in there. So yeah, just pray for that family. All right, questions?
What was the language used in the Mayan? Did they speak a lot of Spanish still, or was there mostly just Mayan local dialects?
It was mostly Spanish. I think I heard that there's a few people that still speak Mayan. Okay, so yeah, it's a little bit of both. It sounds like.
For the most part, if you leave the United States, people speak more than one language. So we are very monolinguistic. Everyone else, you want me here? Most everyone else in the world speaks more than one language. So they speak Spanish typically, and then Mayan as at home probably.
And the light just hit you right, and I couldn't see your hand.
What was the most challenging thing for you in your experience?
Taking time to spend with God. It's amazing how you can get caught up in the mission trip and be there on a goal of trying to teach other people about God. But I could tell that a lot of my morning devotions, the schedule just didn't work out, so I kind of set that aside. So it's like, oh, I'll just put it off. I won't read my Bible this morning. So I'd often do it later in the day when I have some free time. Well, especially once I'm back, I realized that was a bad idea. And I realized it was a challenge there. It's really hard to share God's love if you don't have it yourself. So I thank God that he was there with us, and I did take time to spend with him at times, but I did skip a few days, and I could tell it. It was a difference.
Mine's not nearly so deep, but it was the cold showers. Yep, that shock of cold water, that's rough.
I was never so happy to get a warm shower as I was when we got back to Guatemala City.
I was happy to just be able to drink any water that I could see that I knew was regular or usually safe in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, potable water is a gift that we don't really appreciate until it's gone. And the idea that I can go to the sink and get a drink of water is a real privilege that we take advantage of, or we don't maybe take advantage often enough. So.
What was the most impactful thing that you had with this experience?
I'd say it was in VBS for me. That was some of my favorite time, was just getting to hang out with the kids, even if I couldn't understand them. Getting to work with them, do the crafts together. I felt like I could connect with them in a way that I couldn't in the U.S. because the language, the communication was lost. We could connect in a sort of a deeper way at times that is just not possible or usually used here in the U.S.
So throw that out to one of the other students over there. Do you guys want to jump in on that question? Mrs. Hartzell could bring the mic. What was impactful? What was most impactful for you guys?
What impacted you most, Salvador?
Give me talking to staff, like Tom and the other staff, and them telling us more about God and stuff.
So a lot of the staff that were there had done this multiple times, and they took a lot of time with our kids to answer questions and just talk to them, which was awesome.
So Tom was an interesting character. He's a Portuguese, Swedish guy who has a dream of becoming a beekeeper. Found that really interesting, actually. And he and his wife are on kind of a lifelong mission trip, and they do this, and wherever God leads them is where they go. And I found it, like Salvador, pretty interesting to talk to him. He was an interesting character.
I think when we left, they didn't know where they were going next.
No, but they were going somewhere.
Joel, what was most impactful for you?
Working in the dental clinic.
Okay. And why was that impactful for you?
I got to help a lot of patients.
We had a lot of patients who needed help, and it certainly made a difference. Mahali, same question.
Making new friends, like the people there and the people that went with us.
All right. Lots of new friends. we could ask you also, what was most difficult?
Communicating with them. Yeah.
Communication? Joel, what did you find most difficult?
Putting up with my classmates.
Putting up with his classmates. Sometimes that is. So the boys, so Salvador, Joel, and Kyle and Deegan got to spend a lot of time together. They shared one bedroom, 4 beds, 1 bedroom.
By choice.
1 shower. They spent a lot of time together, and they did have to learn to work with each other's foibles and differences, and they did really well. What was most difficult?
When we left because the food was more expensive. No more 14-cent ice cream.
There we go. Other questions? Will you do it again?
Definitely.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Kyle, will you do it again?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be enjoyable.
So we did have several students say, Mrs. Hartzell, Mr. Hartzell, we don't want to go to Washington, D.C. next year. We want to go back to Guatemala. So I think that is definitely a yes. They would like to go back. Any other questions?
I would encourage you. I mean, we do this through school, and so in some ways it's connected there. But there are lots of options to go on a short-term mission trip. And it takes a variety of people to do these. And there's, depending on your skill, there's different mission trips. Not all of them are medical, although there's plenty of those. But even on a medical mission trip, there are other skills that they need. Maybe you've got some building skills. Maybe you have some engineering background. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you are a stay-at-home mom that understands kids really well. Whatever your particular skill set is, there's probably a short-term mission that would love to have you connect with them. And I would encourage you to do that because, once again, the benefit goes 2 ways. You are giving back to other people, and sometimes you're in an uncomfortable situation. The language is difficult, the cold shower is there, the bed's not yours, on and on and on. There's lots of reasons you might be uncomfortable. The food's weird, whatever. But you go out and you are in a place where you are willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you are doing that so that you can connect with people that are very different from you are. But in likewise, they're connecting with you. And you also get that benefit of that growth. And our Christian experience really takes some good jumps when we do that. It kind of gets us out of our comfort zone and makes us think differently. And so I would encourage you to find an opportunity, to look for an opportunity where you can be involved in missions, short-term, long-term, whatever, maybe local. I mean, there's certainly don't have to go overseas to be involved in missions, but there's lots of options.
What was your experience with the students over there, the kids? How would you compare them to over here in the United States? What were their likes, dislikes, values? Did you see them very different, or how did you relate to them?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. As far as, I'll give a simple thing. They like soccer. So they focus around that, though there's quite a few locals that, especially a group that played some basketball. There's personality or otherwise, I don't know that I found them a lot different. In some way, the society itself is a lot closer together. So here in the US, with we tend to be very isolated. There they are to some extent, but not nearly as much as we are here. So they get out a lot more. The kids like to go over to the basketball court, soccer, anyway, they'll play games, there's lots of people always walking the streets. There's outdoor markets, just lots of private areas and stuff. So the society is a lot more engaged with one another. So I guess that's a fairly big difference there.
I did notice that kids were out on their own much more than we have here in the States. I think in years past, when I was younger, a lot younger, I remember as a child walking to town on my own, but I never would have let my children do that. And certainly, most of the parents that I know definitely don't let their children do that now. And in Colis, there were kids around all over the place all the time, even after dark. So yeah, a lot more mobile and outside.
One of the places we went up into the Mayan village, you saw a couple pictures there. We were in, I believe, a 6th grade classroom as best as I could tell. And the first thing I noted when we were in the classroom was it's a pretty different experience there to be in school than where we're at. There's no technology at all, except for lights, and that's the bulk of your technology is electric lights. But I took a little time to snoop in the teacher's resources that were there at her desk, his desk. I don't know what it was a her. And I guess I shouldn't have been terribly surprised. They're kind of teaching the same thing we are. You know, I looked through the science stuff and I could understand enough of the Spanish words to recognize the types of things that they were teaching. And math uses numbers, and those are pretty easy to recognize. And so in terms of the math and science and all that, they're learning very similar to the things that we are in our classroom. They're just doing it with a lot less resources than we do. And I was actually pretty impressed with the quality of education that they were appearing to get based on the stuff that was there. I looked at some of the student papers that were on her desk, and they were written fairly neatly. I think neater than my students write typically. No, nothing personal. They were written neatly. It was well done. And so in terms of the education they're getting a quality education. It's something that it's remarkable, perhaps, coming from a Western perspective where we have a real focus on technology and we want the technology in our classroom, but they're doing it without.
I have 2 questions. I don't think you touched much on food. Can you describe food? What did you eat on a daily basis? Were the meals the same every day? A lot of tortillas?
I don't have much to say because I have a hard time remembering everything that we had. Not that I want to recall every meal, but...
I can recall just about every meal.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, beans were pretty common. rice once in a while. That wasn't very, I don't think we had that very much.
And homemade
Yeah,
tortillas. They were
yeah.
fantastic.
Those are good.
And then, in addition to that, every meal that was served to us had some form of vegetable and fruit. And the fruit there is common. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's really, really tasty. So it was something that we got to enjoy a lot of. I did note that lots of my students even ate papaya, which was served at just about every meal. And I didn't think students ate papaya, but
I had it about every time it was served. I
it was
learned that I liked it.
lovely. So Mrs. Hartzell ate no papaya. She missed out.
Next question is, I'm sure none of the kids had phones there, right?
Mhm.
What do you think they thought of you guys having phones?
They blended right in. Yeah, phones, just like here, most all the kids have phones, and they're
They did.
probably on them too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It was
normal.
interesting because the idea is that they would not have the cell phone and that particular addiction that we tend to have in our Western society, but
guilty.
as a we here. But they did. All of the kids had some kind of, even the younger ones, I would say even 10, 11, 12 year olds had phones. Now, if you asked whether people had phones in their houses, no, probably not. But phones are prolific. Yeah.
Talk about food and talk about the things that we were fed. There's a reason, though, that the dental clinic is so important going to places like this. Soda and candy are a food source, and they're convinced. Many times they're convinced of the advertising that goes on with the sodas and the colas and things like that. That it's actually healthy, makes you healthy and happy. And one of the questions that was posed to one of the healthcare providers is, how do I get my child to drink her Pepsi in the morning? You know, and we look at that and we have that exact response. Really? You know, but in fact, the advertising presents this as so good, and everybody's happy and healthy and love, and and we want to be happy and healthy too. So this is what we should drink. And as I watched the markets and the stores around where our hotels were, they would bring in truckloads of Coke, and they would have pallets of it sitting out front. And we were there about a week, and they refilled those pallets multiple times, and they were sold out, and they would bring more in, and they would sell out. And this was just one or two markets. There's markets all over town that are doing this. People are consuming this stuff in such high quantities. And so the health crisis that is we experience here in the Western world, in our country, with the diabetes and other diseases that come from that heavy sugar intake, is also affecting them, and the tooth decay that's happening because they're starting as infants drinking this stuff in their bottle, and then it's a lifetime of sucking this stuff down. So the sodas and the candies and the cakes and all of that stuff is so huge there that whatever health crisis is going on now with their teeth is going to just multiply with other things. Maybe. And sometimes it's cheaper to buy a soda than it is bottled water.
It's definitely, yeah. I think it's connected because you have to buy bottled water. You can't drink water from any of the taps. So at least we found when we were in Kenya also that bottled water is more expensive, often double what a soda is. And so if you
Which doesn't
have,
make any sense.
it doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it is, the water's more expensive. And if you're thirsty and you have a limited income and a soda is 10 cents and bottled water is
50.
70 cents, you go with the cheaper option often. We did not. It would have been something good to take. We ended up, our group bought bottled water for us, and we went through it quite quickly.
I think the water would have had to been doubly, I don't know how to describe it, there's two words here, so, and it would need to be filtered and purified, I think, because a lot of it was really bad. Maybe right out of some of the taps, it might have been fine to just do one or the other. I don't really know which one would be best, but it would
Purified if you have the choice.
yeah.
Is the water from the wells even bad?
Yeah. One of the struggles in third world countries is what to do with sewage. They don't have sewage treatment plants, and so the sewage oftentimes gets poured into the local streams, and the disease filters down and it gets into the groundwater as well. So even out of a well, there's no guarantee. In fact, you're almost more likely that the water is not safe from there. So the church that we visited the first Sabbath, it smelled like you were in a latrine, because right behind the church is a stream flowing down that is in fact the local sewage dump. And so it's smelling incredibly nasty, which is probably why they got such a great deal on that. Yeah, so the church just joins in that. So the bathrooms in the church are right above the stream, and that's where they filter off to as well. So it's, in order to fix the water problem, I thought about that there. I mean, wouldn't that be great if we somehow could help Guatemala fix their water problem so people could drink potable water? But it would have to start in just really fundamental ways of how we treat sewage and how we take care of this. And it's a multi-level problem. The electricity was steady. I mean, they have some power outages now and again. We experienced a couple short ones, but nothing significant. The electricity seemed to be on all the time. Same with the water. So in that aspect, they're doing pretty well.
No more questions, Kyle. I just want to thank you and the other students who went for representing YAC so well. And I am just so happy that you had that experience and that you would like, oh, the teachers, yes. And a mom went too. Mm-hmm. And Cal went, and I understand she had a good time. And just thank you very much for being good representatives for us.
Cal's organizational skills came in really, really helpful as she made sure that the pharmacy had what they needed to work, and so good job on that. It was run very smoothly, and to not solely from her perspective, but she was very fundamental in that. So as we close, so we do have a closing song.
Number is wrong. 367. Thank you.
367.
Want me to stand here?
Sure. Lester, am I using this mic wrong because it keeps getting a feedback? Am I too far, too close? Okay.
Do something.
Do something.
We can do
Sure,
it.
we can sing it. Rescue the perishing, let's stand for the dying, snatch them and pity.
Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, snatch them and pity from sin and the grave. Weep o'er the erring one, lift up the fallen, tell them of Jesus the mighty to save. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Though they are slighting him, still he is waiting, waiting the penitent child to receive. Plead for them earnestly, plead with them gently, he will forgive if they only believe. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Rescue the perishing, duty demands it, strength for thy labor the Lord will provide. Brought to the narrow way, patiently win them, tell the poor wanderer, Savior has died. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save.
Let's close with prayer. Father in heaven, we are honored to work with you, honored to have a group of kids that were willing to step out of their comfort zone and go when you called. Now as we recognize that call, maybe even at another time, we ask that you give us the courage and willingness to follow your lead. We thank you for the Sabbath that we get to spend together. In Jesus' name, amen.